Hi everyone, welcome. If you're getting that weird sense of deja vu, no, you're not in the Matrix. The reason you're sensing that is because the setup for this feeding here today of the African night crawlers is very similar to what we did 10 days ago during the last check-in. Right down to having both systems up here on the bench, even though the plan is to do nothing over here in bucket number 2. We're only going to feed bucket number 1. The other thing that might be reminiscent of the last check-in is the fact that we've got the box of leaves on the standby, ready to go as supplementary bedding, and the feeding is very similar to last time too. Pumpkin once again is on the menu. The most thing we'll overdo, I guess, in terms of doing anything with bucket number 2 during this test is to maybe just remove the coverings enough to take a peek, but that's about it. We're not going to really mess with this. The whole idea was to set it and forget it. So the only system that gets any attention in these check-ins is bucket number 1, and we're going to get them fed today. In the grand scheme of things, today is 85 days since these two systems were launched, and at this point 15 days away from reaching its targeted end goal for completing the test that it's in right now with this whole set it and forget it thing. The idea was to go 7 weeks, 49 days, and after that began, we've already been in here a couple times to feed, so the feed count in bucket number 1 over here has surpassed bucket number 2 by 3 once we get today's feeding completed. I'm trying to remember now, it's what, 6? I think we got up to feeding number 6 when we were still feeding both systems during each check-in, but feeding number 7 and 8 came only to bucket number 1. That last feeding that bucket number 2 got was a feeding, but then just a whole ton of bedding and a little bit extra food thrown in there with the bedding. So the feedings were not one for one at the very beginning. The whole idea was to load up bucket number 2 as far as we can get it, and then forget it. Set it and forget it. Does anyone else feel more deja vu every time I say set it and forget it? There used to be that famous TV pitchman, Ron Popeil. That was one of his things. I think it was like a chicken roaster gadget that he was selling at the time, where you throw the chicken in, turn the thing on, and then let it go. Alright, so as you might have noticed, there was a good amount of leafy material nested down in the middle of the system. Some of it is even still not even showing signs of having been moistened by being kind of thrown in there in a pile. It wasn't a distinct pile though, because we did try to blend in the food, so we threw in a little bit of bedding, we dropped in some more food, we threw in a little bit more bedding, we dropped in yet more food. And I thought that by doing so, the introduction of the damp, soggy chunks of pumpkin would allow for a little bit of moisture to go from the food to the bedding, kind of paving the way for some major worm action going down into the fresh bedding, despite that it's being put in dry and sort of sterile. I like the idea of blending in all this old bedding, since we're coming in with fresh bedding. This is the stem of a pumpkin, holding up remarkably well, considering that it's probably many months old at this point. I guess in a system this small, there's really no avoiding the whole thing of blending in the old bedding when you're trying to excavate a hole suitable for the next feeding. I think we've done just that here. So I think we're going to see if the side walls of this little crevice will remain stationary for long enough for us to get the backfill introduced. So just like last time, pretty much the same story. In goes the dry bedding, in comes some of the food. Just wondering, when do we put the coffee in? I don't think the last feeding included coffee. But I guess one of the benefits of having the coffee is that at the end we could use the coffee filter as our feeding zone indicator. slash top covering. Here we had used this piece of paper towel to lay out on the top, and you know, I kind of like the way it looked there when we first arrived, so I think we'll do it again. I was thinking about just repurposing it and putting it in here as supplementary bedding down in the feeding zone, but maybe we could set up the feeding zone indicator as we usually do, and then also drop on that paper towel to continue as a top covering. So this is kind of like what we were driving at last time too, which was to see if we can stack things up high enough to start approaching the level of the neighboring bin. And I don't know, if I was just to look across the side, I would say, you know, we got a ways to go. So I think we're probably going to be squeezing one more check-in with 15 days to go between today and the point in time when these systems both reach 100 days of age, which is really where we're going to take this set it and forget it test to. I think we're going to come back in here. Maybe we'll come back in here another 8 days. That would leave us another week before the end of the test. So maybe we'll do it that way. And this is kind of a non-juicy layer here with a somewhat damp coffee. Not completely dry, but a little bit damp going in here on the dry leaves. So perhaps this last application of the last few chunks of pumpkin will bring enough moisture with it to soak the materials right below. This is just some of the material that the seeds kind of get attached to. And I wonder if I can carefully pick this up. It is, whoa, okay, I got it, here it is. Pumpkin seeds. So I did, you know, harvest all the pumpkin seeds out of the pumpkin that I hacked up most recently for the ones that we just fed. And then I leave those to dry, and those become one of the major ingredients in my worm chow. And I've got a whole bunch of new pumpkins that I just scavenged. I saw a listing in the classifieds up on the Facebook Marketplace for a nearby church that was done doing their pumpkin patch, hayride, whatever thing for the kids. So they put an advertisement. I mean, they put a sign out in front of the property too, but they also put an online advertisement for free pumpkins. And it was only about a 10-minute drive from here, so I went over there and I loaded up the back of the vehicle with as many pumpkins as I could fit to bring home to supplement my collection. So believe it or not, I do still actually have a pumpkin from the previous year. So this was Halloween 2023. I've still got one lingering leftover pumpkin from Halloween 2022. Amazingly still holding out and intact. So I'm still trying to keep my ungloved hand clean for operating my gadgets over here. So why don't we try to see if we can get this check-in completed without me getting my clean hand too dirty. All we've got left to do is to bring back the top covering plastic and we're finished. So that's it for our check-in, everyone, with our now 85-day-old African Nightcrawler warm buckets. Doing quite nicely if you ask me. And we've got 15 days, a little bit over 2 weeks remaining in this test. I think we'll check in one more time before we bring this test to an end. Make sure we do another fairly generous application of bedding with the food that we give them. And then who knows, in 15 days, maybe we'll have two systems that are pretty close in level. No, I doubt it. I think bucket number 2 is going to be the winner here with all that stuff we put in there all those days ago. All right, everyone, that's it for the check-in. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Thanks for stopping in, and thanks for watching. If you enjoyed it, please don't forget to leave me a quick thumbs up before you go. That's always really appreciated. And if you haven't done so already, please also consider subscribing to the channel. That's very much appreciated as well. All right, everyone, have a great day. Thanks for watching. Bye now.